all the sports teams that exist. Certain countries have a big one or two, but we're proud to say our podcast is about the biggest team in the entire world.
And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Yeah! This is the World's Team Podcast. All about the world's team, the Dallas Cowboys, baby. We're here to redefine what it means to be a fan of the gridiron game. It's not just America's team anymore. Nope. We're taking that star-studded pride and spreading it across the globe. Each week, we dive into all things Cowboys. From game analysis that'll have you on the edge of your seat, to reactions and all the latest news. Whether it's free agency frenzy, draft day drama, or injury reports that make us want to hug our lucky jerseys a little tighter. We're bringing in fan groups from all over the place, from Germany, France, Brazil, the UK, Canada, Japan. Everybody gets to share their 2 cents on America's favorite team.
Here we go!
America's team, Mexico's team, world's team, my Dallas Cowboys.
And now your hosts, Paul Stewart and Mike Poland.
Good morning, Cowboys Nation. It is the 31st of August 2024, and welcome to another episode of the World's Team, bringing in Dallas Cowboys fans from all across the world. I am your host, Paul Stewart, and I am joined as always, I'm trying to think of my analogy here. I can't think of one yet, but you
Partner
know
in crime.
Partner in crime, there we go. But here is my partner in crime. You can find him on bloggingtheboys.com. It's no other than Mr. Mike Poland. How are we doing, my brother?
Yes, good. But mate, this is it. This is the final The World's Team podcast of the off-season, pre-season. So this is it. Next week, when we talk, we're going to be doing a pre-game show for the first time this year.
Yes, I can't
imagine it.
I know, I can't wait. Next week, obviously, is going to be the pre-game show for the Cleveland Browns game. We're going to look at the roster for the Cleveland Browns. Where do we see any weaknesses? Where do we see our Cowboys roster? Where can we actually sneak that win? Are we going to be a dominant win? Is it going to be a close one to call? Is Brandon Aubrey going to be the guy to be the deciding factor of that game next week? Stay tuned for next week, ladies and gentlemen. But this week, Mike, we've got a hell of a lot to talk about, especially in this past week or so. A lot has happened. CeeDee Lamb finally gets paid. He's here for a long time. He's got his contract. Finally, we've been saying this for weeks. We had our sources from DallasCowboys.com telling us, the deal's going to get done before week 1. And it happened.
Yeah, and thank goodness. Because that was really getting quite infuriating. Because, I mean, me and you have been quite vocal in terms of the decisions that the front office make in terms of what direction they want to go. And we'll reiterate what we said if you haven't seen it before, is that we don't know if the Cowboys are going for a rebuild or if they're just trying to keep things plodding along. Either way, it makes zero sense. If you're going for a rebuild, it makes zero sense to get rid of a guy who is as talented and is important as CeeDee Lamb. If you decide to move on from Dak, right? Yeah, I hear cases on both sides of keeping him and wanting to let him go. Both are correct in different forms and in different ways.
Yeah,
but it makes zero sense to get rid of Lamb. Like, if you can make changes with the offensive line, which we've seen that this season. It's a big churn out. That's the way these things go. But running back, it's in and it's out. But to get rid of a guy where the entire offense really is funneled through CeeDee Lamb, that if you're going to move on from Dak, whether you move on from him or not, it makes zero sense to want to move on from Lamb. And now they've signed that deal. It's delivered. Fantastic. I'm already feeling like
A weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, there's just been this whole lot of pressure on the chest, but you just like each week, we're coming into this and there's been no changes, there's no talk. We're asking the guys in Dallas to give us some information, and they got nothing to give us because, and you're just like thinking, gee, come on. And you hear excuses like agents in Paris, CeeDee Lamb's going over here, and the money's off in this time, and you hear all of this. You're just kind of like, well, what is true and what's not is hard to decipher.
Yeah. I mean, just to say, if there's one thing that our friends at DallasCowboys.com did say time and time over again, the deal will get done before one. That was the exclamation mark from what they were saying. So big shout out to our friends at DallasCowboys.com, Mickey Spagnola, Kyle Yeomans, Nick Harris, all those guys. So they've been.
And a shout out to Derek Eagleton as well.
Of course,
he's always got a corner.
We cannot forget the legendary Eagleton, a good friend of ours. We had the pleasure when we met him way back in 2014, back in London when Dallas were playing Jacksonville. It's the first time we met him. I still remember the first question Derek asked me. This is like, "What's your thoughts on bringing Adrian Peterson into the Dallas Cowboys?" that was his question to me. I was like, "Ooh." It's like, are you trying to tell us something here? But obviously that didn't work out. Obviously, but ever since then, we've kind of grew a good friendship since then. Every time I'm in Dallas, I'll come over and say hello type of thing. And obviously last year, as part of the UK Cowboys fans, as you can see there on Mike's screen, the flag there, we were all over, a big number of us. We went over to Dallas, big group for the UK, representing our fan group. And we had a great time, get to hang about with Nick, get to congratulate Kyle Yeomans. He literally just announced that he was going to have triplets, and funny
enough, he messaged us because we were coming over. He was like, we were talking to him, and he was like, "Listen, got some big news, but you can't say nothing." And it was like, "Okay, don't you worry, your secret's safe with us." And he's like, "I know," because the trust is there. But Derek is always cool.
Yeah, because we were generally thinking it was something big, like a trade or something like that. That's what we were thinking. But no, it was more to do with Kyle's personal life. That he was going to be a dad, and he not just a dad, but 3 times a dad. So So,
and we bought them all breakfast as well, and
we brought them whiskey. We brought them some goodies as well from all across the UK, and
I got Brian Broaddus. Remember, I got Brian Broaddus that UK bow tie.
Oh, that's right.
Then he was on TV. He was on TV then after the Thanksgiving game with G-Bag, and he was wearing it.
I think I may actually got a photograph with him wearing it actually.
Yeah, I think he put it on his Twitter as well.
I believe so.
Yeah,
but going back to the news, so obviously CeeDee Lamb signed his deal. Fantastic news. We're over at static, and I will say though, Mike, it's like with CeeDee Lamb not being at training camp, I think it's been a good blessing for the likes of Cooks, Tolbert, everybody, all the
Flournoy and Kopp,
etc. All these guys in the wide receiver core to get more opportunity to actually build that chemistry with Dak Prescott.
And you get to pull back the veil and get a deeper look at them. Because obviously when CeeDee Lamb is there, CeeDee Lamb, and if you remember last year when he was in training camp, the CeeDee Lamb was so involved and so hyped up and so pepped up. They had to stop him from going to practice because they were like, because they wear, all the monitors and everything on them. And they were like, you need to calm down. You're doing way, way too much. And they had to shut him down in practice because that's CeeDee Lamb.
Who does that remind you of? Micah Parsons.
Yeah, Micah Parsons, yeah.
But yeah, it's because if there's one thing when you look back from last year, and this is my overall assessment on
I know what you're going to say, and I already agree with you, but go on.
Yeah. So, and for our listeners and our viewers, it's basically last year when CeeDee Lamb's on the field, there was a big gap in terms of production from when CeeDee Lamb's on the field and when CeeDee Lamb's off the field. It felt as though that the rest of the wide receiver core could not take up the weight, essentially.
Yeah.
He couldn't deliver. Like, don't get me wrong, there was some really good moments in terms of the short range passes and stuff like that. We were still moving the ball to a certain extent, but not as effective with CeeDee Lamb's on the field. So but now that we've had this really great training camp, seeing the likes of Cook, seeing Fournette really flourishing and stuff like that, Tolbert having a really good training camp, it feels like from Lamb's here and the other wide receivers here, it's bridged the gap a lot
The
closer
gap
now.
has
It's
closed.
like they're on like we're getting up to that more par level now, and that's what we want from our wide receivers and for Dak Prescott. That's what we need.
Yeah. And you know, me and you talked about this way back. I think we were actually with Blogging the Boys when we spoke about this. It may have even been on a round table, I think. And we very specific.
Big shout out to RJ Ocha. Big shout out.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Big shout out to all those guys. That when we were talking about it, the best example of the failure, or not the failures, but the issue with the wide receiver called beyond CeeDee Lamb happened in the last game. That CeeDee Lamb seemed to just mentally fall off the shelf, so we had to go through the call. And the wide receivers failed to come and match up. So much so that the most productive pass catcher, if you like, in the Green Bay game at the Wildcard. There you go. Yeah, it was Jake Ferguson. Yeah, he caught all the touchdowns.
Yep. So, and that's one thing I'm really excited for going into this season. I know we've still got a lot to cover today, but Jake Ferguson has become his own man since arriving in Dallas. He took over Dalton Schultz's role. He's really flourished. Even though we drafted Luke Shoemaker in the second round, people were saying, why the hell did we draft a tight end in the second round? I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Shoemaker still brings a lot to the table when he's actually fit. But this is all Jake Ferguson's show. I love his mentality, his approach to the game, like even his smack talk on the field. Like what he did to Jamal Adams in that Seattle game was just beautiful.
But I just want to add to that, and I'll let you carry on. But you don't just Jamal Adams is just the highlight. That's the tip of the iceberg. Whenever you see an issue on the offense, you know, when there's some sort of verbal altercation or something coming in, you watch every time is Jake Ferguson, who seems to be the enforcer of the offense, that will come in and protect his offense.
And not just that, he's the safety blanket for Dak.
Very
much so. Like
in
what
different ways.
Very much so what Jason Witten was.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Jake Ferguson still got a lot to be up to that same level as what Jason Witten was. Like, I think it's going to be very difficult to anyone to try and replicate what Jason Witten has done in a career. But I think Jake Ferguson is actually on the right trajectory to really enhance himself to be one of the best tight ends in the league. And more so, I think it's a bit of a disrespect towards Jake Ferguson of how low he's been drafted in fantasy football. I'm sorry, but don't get me wrong. Your George Kittles, your Travis Kelce's, etc. Yeah, they score fantasy points. So does Jake Ferguson. So does he.
You know, the Kittles and Kelce's are all getting on a bit now.
Exactly. It's time for the new
Kelsey's
wave.
35, I think.
I know. I remember seeing Travis Kelce play live the year after Dallas came back in 2015.
That's right.
Right? And this is when Alex Smith was still the quarterback.
And before he had the nasty injury.
Yeah, that's right. And this is way before Patrick Mahomes. And Kelce was the big standout in that game against the Detroit Lions. Big standout.
And he's very young back then.
Yeah. So, but moving on.
Yeah.
But in other news, we already kind of mentioned about Dak Prescott. His contract's not been discussed. Well, it probably has been discussed, but there's not been any update regards to when's he going to get signed and stuff like that. But there has been comments by the man himself, Mr. Jerry Jones, and there has been a further comment back from Dak Prescott himself. So, Mike, hit me with it.
It was a retort, basically. So after practice last week, Jerry made comments about Dak's, because people are saying, now you got Jerry Lamb's contract done. What about Dak? And this has been swirling. And Jerry's made comments saying that, Dak is a quarterback, we're going to make him our quarterback for life and yada, yada, yada. All this came out. And then in practice, after practice, they spoke to Dak in regards to this. And his words exactly when he was asked the question is Dak turned around. And this is totally different. This is something new we've seen from Dak in terms of how he's speaking his verbiage. He turned around and said, I stopped honestly listening to things Jerry Jones says to the media a long time ago. It doesn't really hold weight with me. And now that is an interesting turn.
See, like, in a way, I agree. But see, like, I totally agree because Jerry can say the most random stuff in the media. As much as I love for what Jerry has done in the course of his tenure as the Dallas Cowboys owner and GM, he's done an amazing stuff, like bringing us the stadium, bringing us the star in Frisco. But like, the only thing obviously he's not brought us is another Super Bowl since 1995.
Although he has brought 3 in.
He has brought 3 in, but not since 95. It's a long way, especially for our generation as Cowboys fans, especially because I was 9 years old when the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl, and I'm 38 now, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, I can remember I was in comprehensive school, and I can remember running home because I set the game to record on, and this is bad. Somebody's going to use this, I bet, in some sort of crop this in some sort of chop, and we'll end up being a meme or something. But yeah, I can remember setting my VHS to record, and that takes some doing. I'm running home to try and watch it without hearing the news on who won the Super Bowl.
Well, you know what, Mike? I might actually make that as the clip. Nah, I'm only joking. I won't do that to you. But yeah, because when you look back what Jerry's done over the course of the years with players in general, like with Tank, with Zeke, like remember when Zeke was going up for his contract and Jerry's made the infamous Zeke who? Like comment, like then obviously made merch from it. Then obviously when the deal was done, then they had a pure laugh about it. Like, but at the same time, it's like Jerry doesn't really help matters or pleasing the minds of of Cowboys Nation when he does stuff like that. So
it is infuriating.
It can be infuriating at times, but there's a method to his madness. It gets people talking. That's the reason why. That's the reason why he does it. So I can understand why Jerry does it because it keeps us in spotlight. But from a player's perspective, I can completely understand where Dak's coming from. Take it with a pinch of salt. Just
there you go.
Let the agent and let the front office deal with it. So he's got nothing to worry about. All he can focus is on football. But I will though say, Mike, I am particularly worried. If we do not get Dak Prescott's contract done, we're going to get hit with that salary cap hit. And that's going to affect us in the future. The dead cap. So for anyone that's not fully aware, like I believe it's at 45 million next year. And it's 35 the following year or something. It's like a total.
It's in the 30s.
It's in the region of that. But basically, when you take that chunk of $45 million dead cap, that can really affect us in terms of bringing in new players for the foreseeable future. So that's my concern. Even though we should be focused on winning this year, and I totally agree. But if you want to keep the train rolling, how are you supposed to do that when you've got no money? Well, or less money. That fact.
Like you use the part, and I've said this to many people on Twitter when we've talked about this and on Facebook. They keep going, I wouldn't pay Dak $60 million next year to play with this team. And I go, okay, you don't want to pay Dak $60 million to be on this team next year. Are you happy to pay $45 million to not be on the team? Because that's where you're at. Which is better.
And when you look at it, who was it actually posted the video? It was Cam Newton, actually. When you look at the top 10 quarterbacks right now, only one of those top 10 quarterbacks have actually won the Super Bowl, and that's Patrick Mahomes, right? So the top 10 in terms of contracts I'm referring to. So obviously number one right now is Trevor Lawrence, right? He's not a playoff quarterback yet. You've got likes of Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, etc. Like some of these guys, I've had a little bit of success, but are you mean to tell me that likes of Trevor Lawrence is better than Dak Prescott? Are you mean to tell me that Jalen Hurts is better than Dak Prescott? I don't think so. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be biased, but in terms of overall ability, you can run with the ball, you can throw the ball. Some of these guys are more one-dimensional. I know it sounds harsh. It's just my opinion from what I've seen, but I just don't get it. I really like. I can understand. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but when you look at the market and with the whole salary cap increasing on a yearly basis,
the inflation of it all,
exactly. It's like you're going to have to pay $60 million if you want to have a good quarterback. And here's the strange part, though, mate. One of those lowest paid players in that top 10 is Patrick Mahomes now. Remember years ago, he signed that 10-year, $500 million deal. Like,
that's astronomical.
Astronomical at the time. But when you look at it now, that is like nothing now. Like in comparison to like a Trevor Lawrence's contract or Lamar Jackson's contract.
Like you look when Dak signed his contract the last time around, right? So he was obviously franchise tag, and then they gave him the 3-year deal, right? They put him on it. He's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, right? And people are making arguments about this. By the time the next season started, he wasn't even in the top 5.
Nope, he wasn't. He was not.
That's how quickly it changes and evolves. So.
Here's the interesting part. Didn't Aaron Rodgers got a new deal right after Dak Prescott when he was still at Green Bay?
Might have done. It was very quick when it all started changing.
I think he got like a $38 million deal for 3 years or something like that, and obviously he's now went over to the New York Jets. But it just comes to show it's like when you sign that deal, it sounds a lot more, but the next person up is going to get even more.
It resets each and every time.
And you've got these players like Lawrence, Herbert, Kyler Murray, etc.
Josh Allen.
Well, Josh Allen, I would probably make the exception to because he's won playoff games. He's got I do like Josh Allen. I think he is a really good quarterback. I really do. But likes of Kyler Murray, etc., the ones I just kind of briefly mentioned, I'd still take Dak Prescott over these guys any day. I really would.
I would over Josh Allen. I'm sorry, I would too.
Well, I know you would because you're very statistical. Because obviously, was it 2 years ago you brought the stats like that stats and I remember it like it was. I can't remember what website it posted the stats. It was something to do with average per game, average touchdowns, all that type of stuff, and
it went viral.
Oh, that's right. You got slaughtered by Cowboys haters for that one. I do remember that. But
nothing new there, mate.
No, nothing new then. But yeah. So hopefully we will get some update regards to Dak Prescott getting a new deal. I hope because it's like you mentioned. It's like, would you rather take on a 60 million quarterback or 45 million cap hit and not bring in additional players in? For me, the choice is simple. And if you were to give that 60 million, you can actually, again, spread the cost out and might bring the cap down.
Yeah. And here's the funny part, right? That regardless, if you get rid of Dak, that 45 mil for the dead cap because of the Voyagers is still there, right? So Dak is gone. You're paying Dak essentially to play against you. Bearing in mind, you still need to get a quarterback in to replace Dak. So you'd end up paying more with the 45 million plus whatever you would have to pay to bring a new quarterback in, you'd be paying more than what you would if you signed him to a contract.
I will say though, I do not want Sanders if that's the case.
I agree.
I'm sorry, like I love Dion, but his son's a good quarterback, but I don't like the fact how he treats his teammates. I don't. That's an issue for me.
They should have lost against North Dakota State on Thursday. I'm telling you, I watched that game and I was like, they should have lost that game. There was a number of targeted calls they should have had, and that player's ejected.
Well, but if we do decide to move on from Dak Prescott, then obviously quarterback's going to be a priority in the future, whether it's in the draft or free agency. We might have to bring in a veteran in for 1 year, then have one of those years we'll just tank it and try and get the quarterback the future, or one of those things. I know we're being big conspiracy theorists right now, even though the season's just about to start here. But anyway, we've got that this year. I think he's going to absolutely ball out, regardless contract or no contract, because he has been on fire at training camp. Like, he's solidified himself, obviously being QB number 1.
Oh yeah,
Cooper Rush QB number 2, and obviously, well, Trey Lance is a bit of an enigma, and we'll just leave it at that. but
I like that.
But before we do move on to the other pieces of news, we'll give a big shout out to our sponsor, and we'll be back with you in a wee moment.
The World's Team Podcast is brought to you by Cowboys Experience, the ultimate Cowboys experience with stadium tours, meet and greets, tailgating, game tickets, and much more. For more information, please go to www.cowboysexperience.com.
Yes, so be sure to go to cowboysexperience.com and use the discount code WorldsTeam2024, and you'll get some discounts on your packages and some free extra freebies included with your package. So, so and another news, Mike, we've brought in Dalvin Cook, a player long rumored to be a Cowboy for, I don't know, for the past 3 or 4 seasons. Like, even before, it's no secret.
It's true. It's true.
Like, even before he signed for the Jets, he was rumored to join the Cowboys. He decided to go to the Jets. Didn't really work out there. We knew that was going to be a failed move because of how, and no disrespect to the Jets organization, it's a bit dysfunctional. It can be. Like, when Aaron Rodgers went down, the offensive line, who were purely designed for pass protection, had to now become pure run blockers to cater for Zach Wilson, and that fell apart. Then there was injured offensive linemen because of that. So it was a bit of a recipe disaster, and because of that, it kind of mixed up the offense and try and get Dalvin Cook involved. Whereas now coming here to Dallas, for me, it's more one of those scenarios where we don't have to worry about Dalvin Cook too much, because he's going to be rotated in. He's going to bring, yes, he's got injury history. Yes, he's on the treads. He's 29 years old, etc. I get that. But what he does bring is he brings up that physicality to help bring the run game. And when you, Rico Dowdle might go in for the first 2 snaps, get him out, bring in Zeke for third down or whatever on that. Then if both of them are a little bit tired, you can still bring in the likes of Dalvin Cook. It's keeping the train going. That's the way I'm liking it so far. You're not going to get that with likes of Deuce Vaughn, which we will talk about later in the show. But Mike, give me your thoughts on Dalvin Cook.
I mean, if we were talking about this maybe 2 seasons ago, I'd be a bit more excited. It is good, right? I get what you're saying. And what you've said is not incorrect. For me, when you look historically at running backs, they usually peak around the age of 27. After that, they very quickly fall off. We've seen that with the likes of Zeke. you've seen it with Dalvin Cook that, he was with the Jets. It's a down year, but historically, since his big season that he had about 4 seasons ago, statistically, he's going downward. But I mean, we spoke on Thursday, and you did kind of because I'm always up for changing my mind. I like to be told I'm wrong and different opinions.
No one's wrong, Mick. No one's wrong.
No,
it's trying to find of the positives and negatives,
different angles.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm still apprehensive because of the age, plus the history of injuries. He's also coming off a big shoulder injury. But as you mentioned when we spoke on a different show, that he's going to be playing in a heavy rotation. Yeah, okay. More than likely, Deuce Vaughn will shift or move once Cook comes in, but you still have 3 running backs and Hunter Lipke all thrown in there, that you can use these guys in a variety of ways. Zeke, we all know he's a big pass protector, which I think will help against Cleveland. We'll speak about that next week. But you've got Rico, who's really going to be given the starting role. He's RB1. He's going to be taking the early downs. Yeah. After that, I think it all comes down then to game flow, to how the opposition is playing, because Zeke is a very different running back to Cook, but what made Cook special years ago was his explosiveness. He was the burst he had when he broke through that line and getting up to top speed. That's what made him so special. As he's got older and because of the injuries, that's slowly been taken away from him. But it's still there. You can still see it when you see it happening. You'll see it in spurts. So I think in both respects, what you'll have that, and then depending on the flow of it all, is you can decide then which way round you want to play these guys, with the added option of Hunter Lipke to give you support in the receiving game, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm really looking forward to see is how Lipke is going to get utilised. But go back to like Dalvin Cook, like everything we've outlined is like, age, injury history, but he's not going to be your starter. We know that. Yeah. He's going to be your third running back, and he knows that. Dalvin Cook is more aware that what his role is going to be. He's there as a supportive role for likes of Dowdle and for likes of Zeke. So he's there in the rotation side of things. So, but it's in terms of the type of running back will help complement without disrupting the flow of the offense.
Yeah. With the added difference of everything else.
Like, and this is no disrespect to likes of Deuce Vaughn. I love Deuce Vaughn, but if you were to like go from Zeke, Dowdle, then to Deuce Vaughn, it's like a completely style of running back. You might have to like change it up ever so slightly in that series of plays potentially, whereas you don't have to do that with like Dalvin Cook if you put him on the field. So I think it's just keeping the train going essentially.
Yeah. The issue with Deuce Vaughn, unfortunately, is
he had a great game though. He had a great game against the Chargers, and do I still think he deserves to be on this roster? Absolutely. Will he actually see enough time on the field as a running back? Probably not, but on special teams, most likely. But we will talk about that later on.
Yeah. Yeah, the issue with Deuce Vaughn is nothing you can do in a weight room, nutrition, training, classroom work, reps. You cannot help what Deuce Vaughn's problem is, which is he is the smallest player, not running back, smallest player in the NFL right now. You can't change anything with that. And we've seen that last year, that he ended up averaging 1.7 yards per carry. And that, more than anything, would be because he's so small. He has no ability to break tackles.
I somewhat disagree in that regard, mate. Like, when you look at his footage back in Kansas City State, he was able to do that no problem. I think it's more to do with the fact that it's the play that's designed does not cater for Deuce Vaughn. That's what I think.
The NFL isn't. is what I see. Because I know
like,
what you're saying.
He's not. He's not. Let me put it this way. Deuce Vaughn is not an inside run guy. He's not there's no way. He's your outside type of style run back. Running back. Sorry, like basically where all of the offensive line will shift over to the side, like to seal the blocks in, and the running back will run out to the outside and run off to the edge. So that's the style of I would see, and when Vaughn does get into the second level, that's when he does flourish. It's
open field.
Open field, he's fantastic, and he can, and that's when he can break tackles. But because we have utilized him to run inside, it makes it so much easier for the likes of the linebackers and the defensive ends and defensive tackles to wrap their arms around him because of his size.
Yeah,
when you've got a guy like Derrick Henry, it's a lot harder.
Oh yeah,
like that guy's designed for inside run, purely designed for that.
Designed for NFL running. Most definite. Yeah.
And I'm gonna go a little bit left field here, but remember Bo Scarborough? Remember him?
Yeah, from Alabama. Yeah.
I would have thought he would have been a great running back for the NFL. Obviously, it didn't work out because he had the size, the speed, the physicality to really have that accolade. But obviously, some players just don't have it in them, like whether it's mentally to get up to speed or whatever that be. But from a mental standpoint, Deuce Vaughn is up there. He's doing everything he's been asked of him. No questions asked, whatever or not. But obviously, don't want to if we're pushing him, it's like, yep, Deuce, you're gonna run inside. You're gonna go in between Tyler Smith and Tyler Guyton, or Tyler Smith and Cooper Beebe. You're gonna run in one of those gaps, and you're like, really?
That makes
come
no
on.
Sense. Yeah.
It makes no sense. I'm sorry, but anyway, but speaking about Vaughn and Guyton and Beebe and stuff like that. We've now got our 53-man roster. Obviously, there's going to be some subject to change, as we kind of mentioned, with the addition of Dalvin Cook, Carl Lawson's out there as well. Yeah. So hit me up with the 53-man roster as of stands right now.
I mean, for me, we spoke about this on Thursday again. We went through the various rankings, going through the groups. With each ranking and cornerback, safety, the wide receiver group, all very nice, top notch. Yeah, we're talking A grade. Quarterback as well. If you, I know what you're saying as a whole,
as an overall collective. Right. So for anyone, and don't hate me for it, what I will say is if Trey Lance was not QB3 at all, and we just stuck with Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush, I would have given it an A. But because now Trey Lance is in that mixture as the overall score, I put it down to a B plus. So that's where it's getting the average of the group. What I think of the overall grade. But I totally agree with you. Wide receiver, that's been the biggest shift compared to last year. I think personally, when you compare when you look at the Green Bay game, it's like, where are the other wide receivers? They're not getting open, etc. There was nothing exciting nothing to get excited about. But now, because obviously, as we mentioned at the start of the show, with CeeDee Lamb taking a stance, waiting for his contract to get signed, it gave all these opportunities for these wide receivers to say, right, I really need to step up here. I really need to get up to bring the power level back up. So from last year, I would have, based on the Green Bay game, I would have given the Cowboys wide receivers a C or a C plus as an overall. Yeah. But now that these guys have now stepped back up, I've given the overall wide receiver group an A minus. Because there's still room for improvement from these other guys. Like if you were just to grade CeeDee Lamb alone A++, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. But
no, I agree. Because I mean, like you still have question marks, you know, like with Ryan Flournoy, rookie. You kind of like, okay, what's that going to look like? Jalen Brooks, like really, what's that going to look like? Until we see that in a regular season game, so you can't give it an A or an A+, but it certainly looks much improved from last year.
Yeah. It's I'm trying to find the right word here. It's a pre-game evaluation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like obviously grades will change as the season goes on, but for me, there's no question about it. Based on training camp, etc., is cornerbacks. My goodness.
Yeah.
Like you've got Diggs, you've got Bland, you've got Carson. And the biggest star of them all for me in training camp is Jordan Lewis. I'm sorry if that might shock anyone, but Jordan Lewis has been fantastic this training camp. I'm sorry, but everyone's saying, oh, "Why did we re-sign him a couple of years ago?" It says, "Well, now you're seeing the reason why we did re-sign him. He's a good, reliable, solid option, and he has been balling out throughout training camp. So." Like just those four guys alone, you can't help but grade the cornerback position at least an A-.
It's an A, a solid A.
It's a solid A. It's just that's what I'm saying. At least an A-. If anyone was to grade our cornerbacks right now below an A-, I'm sorry, you need to watch more game film. You need to watch more. I'm sorry, you do. I'm sorry.
Like if we include the safeties, right? So let's add the safeties to the mix and the cornerbacks. So we take the defensive back unit. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Jordan Lewis, as well.
But yeah, big shout out to Jordan Lewis. Happy birthday from everyone here at the World's Team.
I did a double salute there. That looks weird. That's
actually pretty.
It's better than the one from Third Rock from the Sun, where's that was a funny one. But what we're talking, so Jordan Lewis, and you talk about the safeties as well, the safety unit. If you look at the defensive back unit as a whole, I'm sitting there and I'm going, find me a better defensive back unit in the NFL, like the total. Because people will be like, "Oh, you're missing, certain players. This player is better than Diggs," but I'm talking of the totalitarian. I don't know what word I was going to use there, but if you take the entire the total of everything from top to bottom, Cowboys have talent, they have depth, they've even got depth beyond depth. So for me, it's a solid unit. And Paul, I know you'll like this one. I also think in terms of like, if we're going to predict, so it's like pre-regular season predictions on position groups, I think this offensive line is going to impress and it's going to shock and surprise some people.
Yeah. Oh no, I totally agree with you. Like Tyler Guyton, what more can we say? He has really impressed me big time. Like, because we did have our question marks about Tyler Guyton when we drafted him. And we had the exact same question marks when we drafted Tyler Smith years ago.
Yeah.
But it seems to be whenever we draft an offensive lineman in the first round, it's like we're stupid enough to question it. It's like, have we not learned our lesson that when it comes to drafting an offensive lineman in the first round, the front office, Will McClay, know their stuff. They really do. Yeah. And we saw that in the early glimpses of preseason. Tyler Guyton ragdolling the Raiders' first team defensive ends like a sack of potatoes and stuff like that. So, and we're seeing the dominance in terms of his size, his kick back from his pass protection, how to seal the blocks, finishing after blocks, pancaking defensive ends like nothing. Like, I'm loving it. Like, and I've said this time and time over again. Like, what impressed me the most is like my question marks was we drafted a right tackle, right? But Tyler Guyton on an interview, I believe it was with Nick Harris on DallasCowboys.com, says he much prefers to play on the left. And I was like, oh, right, okay. So, and then we got to see him work with the one and only Duke Manyweather, who is an offensive lineman coach guru, who's now resided in Dallas. He's been working with him extensively. So all those signs are like, okay, tick. That's a green flag. Sorry, that's a green flag. That's a green flag. I'm not seeing any red flags popping up, not yet. But as far as I'm aware, if this is what Tyler Guyton has been doing as of right now, here's the question. But we're going to really go into this deep next week as Guyton versus Myles Garrett. That's important. If Guyton can basically shut out Myles Garrett, one of the best defensive ends in the NFL, it's going to really increase the fans' confidence, the fact that is going to produce. And obviously, just overall, just feel more happier that we made the right choice in terms of this draft pick. For me, already, I think it's obviously we still need to see it on action, but I'm feeling a lot more positive since the draft.
Oh yeah, and you know, like me, I like to watch rookies and all the rest of it. That's my big thing, and I'm seeing some of them. Joe Alt has been okay; he's been fine. I would have expected him to be a lot smoother than what we kind of predicted. But there's been guys, like J.C. Latham. Remember how much we were into him?
Yeah, he's not. He's kind of
all over the place.
Yeah. I think it really just depends on the coaching, the organization. Like, luckily for us, like as of right now, we've got a good, solid offensive line coaching staff where we're trying to bring in the principal. And here's the thing: bringing in likes of Guyton, bringing in likes of BB. You've got likes of Tyler Smith there, and likes of Terrence Steele. All four of those guys can bring a bit of nasty. Don't get me wrong, Zach Martin can bring nasty as well, but we're not as soft as we once were a couple of seasons ago.
And a big thing that's really, really important to have a good offensive line, you need on your team good pass rushers. Box ticked.
Yeah, there we go. Iron sharpens iron, my friend.
That's exactly what I mean.
Right. Well, it's now it's nearly the end of the show, but it's now time for Mike's Would You Rather this week. So hit me with it, Mike.
All right, then. So what we're going to do, we'll talk about this in reference to, we were just talking about Carl Lawson. Yeah. He's at the moment on the practice squad. So he goes on there as a veteran, but obviously he's going to come on to the active roster. That means somebody has to go, right? Mm-hmm. We've spoken about both of these guys. So the question here is Carl Lawson to the active roster. Who would you rather drop? Deuce Vaughn or Brevin Spanford, the rookie tight end? And there is a sneaky reason why I've mentioned those two players. They both have special team duties assigned to them.
Yeah. It's a tough one, mate. It really is a tough one. For me, I might go for Spanford for two reasons. Is the capability of having a double tight end situation on the offense, to help cater the more powerful running game, but also in terms of the coverage side or blocking side in terms of the special team side, where it's kickoff return or punt return or whatever. That's the reason why. Whereas Deuce Vaughn, we've got a kick returner, punt returner, and Cavante Turpin, sorry.
Yeah. Don't forget, Rico can return kicks too.
And Rico can do it as well. I'm pretty sure one of the corners can do it as well. Oh no, let's not do that again. I'm sorry. but sadly, if that was the case, and as much as I love Deuce Vaughn, I really do love Deuce Vaughn. Like watching him, seeing him in a Cowboys uniform reminds me of the kid from Little Giants with the big helmet. It's like I'm going to see that. Like that guy with the goggles, it just looks too small to wear the helmet. But I do love Vaughn, I really do. But you need to think from what is Bones really looking for. I think he'll probably keep Spanford in there. And I think McCarthy might want that more availability in terms of physical support with the more physical running game as well. Yeah. So I think Spanford would be that guy.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is we're saying this, that Lawson will come up, somebody will have to go. But then you've still got Dalvin Cook on the practice squad you would need to bring up. So that's somebody else that's going to have to go. And then you still have Deron Bland, who's on IR to return, which means after the 4th week, he can come back. So you've still got a lot more moves coming up. But yeah, that was just like, like the initial move is what would be the first, what's the first peg to come out when they start making these roster changes?
I know. But yes, folks, let us know on Twitter or X, Instagram, even here in the comments on YouTube or wherever you want to reach us out to. Let us know your thoughts on our this week's Would You Rather. Let us know your thoughts about CeeDee Lamb's contract. Let us know how you're feeling towards the first week 1 of the regular season. I don't know why I'm stuttering so much because I'm just so freaking excited. Exactly, mate. Exactly. But yes, folks, we will be here back next week for the pregame show against the Cleveland Browns. And who knows? We might have a special guest. We're going to see if we can try and bring someone along. We might. But
why not?
And until then, before we do go, Mike, please tell us where everyone can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter /X at Kenfig Cowboy. Kenfig with a K, Cowboy with a K. And where can they find you, Mr. Pete?
You can find me at I am P-Stew on X and Instagram. But yes, folks, like I said, we'll be back here next week for the pregame show. And like here, as always, it's not just America's team, it's the world's team. See you guys next week.
You've been listening to the World's Team Podcast. There's no other team like it in the world. Nothing more electrifying than the Dallas Cowboys. And we're here to prove it. We bring in fan groups from Germany, France, Brazil, the UK, Canada, Japan. We're everywhere, baby. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at the.worlds.team, on Twitter at _worlds_team, and on YouTube at the World's Team. How about them Cowboys?
And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
See you next time.